chess didn't start as a board game meant to sit on a coffee table. It began as a simulation of war. The earliest version of chess appeared in India around the 6th century under the name Chaturanga. The pieces represented military units, infantry, cavalry, elephants, and chariots, and the goal wasn't just to win, but to outthink your opponent on every level. From India, the game traveled through Persia, where it became Shatranj, and then spread across the Islamic world and into Europe. As chess moved west, it evolved. Rules changed, pieces gained new powers, and by the late 1400s, the modern version of chess had emerged. The queen became the most powerful piece, transforming the game into something faster, sharper, and more strategic. What makes chess timeless is that it has no luck, no dice, no shuffled cards. Every win and loss is entirely on the player. That purity turned chess into more than a game. It became a symbol of intelligence, strategy, and mental discipline. Kings played it, generals studied it. Today, it's one of the most played games on Earth, with hundreds of millions of players and countless variations, all built on a board that hasn't fundamentally changed in centuries. Checkers looks simple, almost too simple, but it's one of the oldest board games still widely played today. Versions of checkers existed as far back as ancient Mesopotamia, over 5,000 years ago. The modern form developed in medieval Europe, especially in France, where it was known as jeu de dames. Unlike chess, checkers was accessible. You didn't need to learn dozens of rules or piece types. Anyone could pick it up in minutes. That simplicity is exactly why it spread so widely. Checkers became a game of homes, schools, and street corners. It rewards foresight and positioning, but it doesn't intimidate new players. Because it was cheap to produce and easy to teach, checkers exploded in popularity alongside mass-produced board games in the 19th and 20th centuries. Even today, it remains one of the most sold games ever, a reminder that sometimes simplicity wins. Backgammon is ancient, older than almost every game on this list. Its roots also trace back nearly 5,000 years to Mesopotamia. Archaeologists have found early boards in royal tombs, meaning it was played by elites thousands of years before modern civilization existed. The game combines strategy and chance. Players race to move their pieces off the board, but dice rolls mean adaptation is constant. You can plan perfectly and still be forced to improvise. Backgammon spread across cultures: Persia, Rome, the Islamic world, and Europe, evolving slightly but never disappearing. In the 20th century, it surged in popularity again, becoming a symbol of sophistication, cafes, and competitive play. Few games can claim that kind of uninterrupted relevance across millennia. Monopoly's story is far more ironic than most people realize. The game was originally designed in 1903 by Elizabeth Magie, not to celebrate capitalism, but to criticize it. Her game, The Landlord's Game, was meant to show how monopolies crush competition and concentrate wealth in the hands of a few. The lesson was supposed to be uncomfortable, but over time the game was copied, modified, and eventually picked up by Charles Darrow during the Great Depression. Darrow sold his version to Parker Brothers in the 1930s, and Monopoly exploded in popularity, ironically becoming a celebration of the very system it was meant to critique. Players buy property, build houses, bankrupt friends, and dominate the board. It's ruthless, fun, slow, and often ends friendships, but that's exactly why it works. Monopoly taps into ambition, greed, risk, and power in a way few games dare to. It went on to become the best-selling board game of all time, translated into dozens of languages, with hundreds of themed versions. What began as a warning became a cultural icon. Clue is what happens when a board game borrows from detective fiction. Created in 1944 by British musician Anthony E. Pratt, Clue was inspired by murder mystery parties and classic whodunit novels. Pratt imagined a game where players weren't just rolling dice, they were solving a crime. The premise was simple and brilliant. A murder has occurred. One of the suspects did it in one of the rooms with one of the weapons. Players gather information, eliminate possibilities, and make an accusation. What made Clue special was narrative. Every game felt like a story unfolding in real time. Colonel Mustard, Miss Scarlet, the library, the candlestick. These weren't just game pieces, they were characters. When the game launched after World War II, it tapped into a public fascination with mystery and logic. It became a classic almost instantly and remains one of the most recognizable board games ever made. Scrabble was born out of frustration. During the Great Depression, an unemployed architect named Alfred Butts decided to analyze popular games to see what they were missing. He noticed that games either relied on luck or strategy, rarely both. So he set out to create something new. Butts studied the English language, counting how often each letter appeared in newspapers, and assigned point values accordingly. Common letters were cheap. Rare letters were powerful. The result was a game where vocabulary, planning, and luck all mattered. At first, Scrabble went nowhere. It was rejected by major companies. But in the 1950s, a department store executive played it on vacation, loved it, and ordered copies for every store in his chain. Demand exploded almost overnight. Scrabble became a household staple, turning language into competition. It made people care about words in a way no textbook ever could, and remains one of the most sold and most beloved board games in history. Risk turns the world into a battlefield. Created in the 1950s by French filmmaker Albert Lamouris, Risk was originally called La Conquête du Monde, the conquest of the world. The goal was global domination, plain and simple. Players command armies, form alliances, betray friends, and wage wars across continents. Dice rolls add uncertainty, but long-term strategy decides who survives. Risk arrived during the Cold War, when global conflict, power struggles, and territorial control were part of everyday headlines. The game mirrored reality, and that made it addictive. Unlike many games, Risk rewards patience. It teaches players about expansion, defense, overreach, and collapse. No one forgets their first betrayal or last stand defense. That emotional intensity helped Risk become one of the best-selling strategy games ever. Catan almost didn't exist. In the early 1990s, a German dentist named Klaus Teuber was designing games in his spare time, mostly as a hobby. He wasn't trying to create a global phenomenon. He just wanted a game that felt different from the traditional roll, move, repeat formula that dominated board games for decades. What Teuber came up with was revolutionary. Released in 1995 as The Settlers of Catan, the game placed players on a modular island made of hexagonal tiles that changed every time you played. Instead of eliminating opponents, players competed through trade, negotiation, and resource management. You needed wood, brick, wheat, ore, and sheep, and the fastest way to get them wasn't force. It was persuasion. Catan introduced something board games hadn't truly embraced before: player-driven economy. You could win without ever rolling perfectly. You could lose by being socially isolated. Deals, alliances, and betrayals happened naturally, without being forced by the rules.